Warning: this is a true crime video and channel. If this is not your cup of tea, I suggest you exit the video now. You have been warned.
Hello, my most beloved and murderous horde, and welcome back. I am, of course, your mistress of murder, Lady Kempo, and you all know my son Charlie. Say hello, Charlie. Now, my horde, I am most excited to be giving you this video tonight, for it is my favorite holiday of the entire year, and that is the great and wonderful All Hallows Eve. Oh, love this holiday. It is a beautiful, wonderful holiday where the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest, where people give away candy to total strangers. It has a very rich history, a very wonderful traditions of history, and it goes back hundreds upon thousands of years into the past, and it's just a very magical night, especially for us pagans. Now, that all being said, there are some creepier and more macabre things that do happen on this most beloved night of mine. And that is what this particular video is about. Shall we begin? You know the drill by now, my lovelies. Pick your poison, sit back, relax, and let's have ourselves a little conversation. Now, Halloween crimes are usually thought of as the thoughtless mayhem of demented strangers who enjoy poisoning candy or putting razor blades in apples, as our urban legends do say. However, there are crimes committed on Halloweens that are much more serious and a lot more real than these urban legends. There have been quite a few different murders, kidnappings, and assaults that have taken place on October 31st, which may or may not be related to the festivities of the holiday. And despite the argument of quite a few groups, there's really no way to fully say that Halloween creates a spike in crime, as the statistics more or less say otherwise. However, there is no debate that some of the crimes I'm about to tell you of weren't creepy as all fuck for happening on this particular holiday. The first one on the list is one that actually started the whole poisoning of the candy and checking your candy whole debacle that many of us who weren't born in the 2000s likely remember starting, and that is the poisoning of Timothy O'Brien. Now, while the vast majority of the Halloween scare stories about razor blades and apples or poison candy are either urban legends or just plain out panics, unfortunately, there is one story that is completely true. 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien had a packet of pixie sticks given to him by his father Ronald to cap off his trick-or-treating. He almost immediately went into convulsions and died about an hour later. The death sent the O'Brien's small Texas town into a panic, and the police determined that the pixie stick that Timothy ate was laced with cyanide. When Ronald's story kept changing, however, police began to investigate him. They found him to be deeply in debt, over $100,000 in debt, and that he had taken out a massive life insurance policy on his children and even a few other children he did not have, mostly nieces, nephews, and other small children. Now, the police found that the other O'Brien children had also been given candy by their dad, but had not eaten it. Ronald O'Brien was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to death and executed in 1984. Number 2 are the murders of Leslie Maza and Adrian Insogna. I apologize if I botched those names. Now, late on Halloween night in 2004, roommates Leslie and Andreen, and even Lauren, had gone up to bed after handing out candy. Now, Menziza had woken up at about 1 a.m. to the sounds of a scuffle. Not knowing what was about to happen, she ran in terror from the house and hid in the backyard, watching the assailant climb out of the window. When the coast was clear, she ran back upstairs and found both of her roommates dead. Throughout the investigation, FBI agents found cigarette butts near the scene of the crime that matched blood evidence inside of the house, but found no known matches in any DNA databases. Officers and FBI agents spoke to nearly 2,000 people of interest during the investigation of the double murder, including one of the Ignatius friends, Lily Pudholm. Her husband, Eric, became a person of extreme interest during the investigation when he refused to give a DNA sample to exclude him from the suspect pool. Nearly a year after the crime, Koppel turned himself in and confessed to the death of his wife's friends while giving no motive for his crime. Now, at the time of the murders, Koppel was only engaged to the friend of one of his victims and carried on with the wedding thinking the crimes would not be tied to him. This quote from Andreen Inakis' mother, Erilyn Allen, gives a chilling insight into the murderer who thought he got away with it. "You are the man who is so cruel as to invite me, the mother of the woman you murdered, to stand up for you at your wedding, to read scripture to you of love and death, and to bless your union. Throughout the weekend you brought me into the heart of your family, knowing all the while that it was you who destroyed mine." Number 3, I so believe, is none other than the, and I'm going to botch this name, Lexie family murders. Now, on Halloween in 2010, Ohio teenager Devin Griffin returned home from Sunday church services to find his brother Derek, mother Susan, and Susan's new husband William murdered. Devin was so traumatized he could only say that the scene was like something out of a haunted house. The killer was found to be William Lexie's son from a previous marriage, William Jr., who had a history of schizophrenia and violence. Now, the boy was later picked up at a halfway house and pleaded guilty to all 3 murders. He committed suicide in prison in 2015. Number 4 is the murder of Carl Jackson. Bronx resident Carl Jackson was a 21-year-old data entry clerk at Morgan Stanley. On Halloween night in 1998, Jackson went with his girlfriend to pick up her son from a party. While there, some teenagers threw eggs at their car, but the classic Halloween prank soon turned ugly. Jackson got out of his car, exchanged word with the teens, and got back in the car. It was then that one of the teens pulled a shotgun out and shot Jackson, killing him instantly. Police later arrested the 17-year-old Curtis Sterling for the murder. The Woodbridge abductions. In 2009, 3 teenage girls were abducted by a man with a gun on their way home from trick-or-treating in Woodbridge, Virginia. All 3 were taken at gunpoint into a wooden area, and 2 of them were sexually assaulted. The 3rd girl was able to call her mother, causing the man to flee. 2 years later, police arrested Aaron Thomas, who was already a suspect in numerous sexual assault cases since 1997. Thomas pleaded guilty in 2012 of the 3 kidnappings. And I'm so sorry, but I'm going to botch the living hell out of this name. Yoshihiro Hattori. This man was a Japanese exchange student living in Baton Rouge as a part of an American Field Service program. On Halloween night in 1992, Hattori and the young son of his host family went to a Halloween party for AFS students. Unfamiliar with the neighborhood where the party was, the boys rang the doorbell of the wrong house. When they got no answer, they started walking back to their car. When the owner of the home, Rodney Pierce, opened the door armed with a .44 Magnum revolver, Hattori turned around and said, "We were here for the party." Claiming he feared for his life and that the exchange student was quote-unquote scary, the homeowner Rodney shot Hattori, killing him. Pierce and his wife then went back into their house and waited 40 minutes for the police, who questioned him and let him go. It was only when both the governor of Louisiana and the Japanese consultant got involved was the man arrested, for which he was acquitted of manslaughter. Now, on the limited information just given here, I would say that that was probably a bad move, but if you all want me to do a video on that particular case, please let me know. Our next little adventure were the murders of Ronald Sisman and of Elizabeth Pultzman. Sometime in the early hours of Halloween in the year of '81, Manhattan couple Ronald Sisman and Elizabeth Pultzman were murdered in their Chelsea apartment. The couple was severely beaten before being shot in the head execution style, with the apartment completely ransacked. New York police initially believed drug money to be the motive, but then the case took a rather bizarre turn. A prison informant claimed that one of his fellow inmates had predicted the crimes weeks before it actually happened. The inmate turned out to be the infamous son of Sam killer, David Berkowitz. Now, Berkowitz had long been rumored to be involved with a satanic cult that helped him with some of the murders, according to the informant. Berkowitz had told him that his cult was planning to enter a residence near Greenwich Village. Chelsea would qualify for that on Halloween and carry out a ritual murder. When questions about this, Berkowitz claimed that Sisman had footage of one of the Son of Sam shootings and was planned to hand it over to the authorities in exchange for dropping some drug charges. While no evidence was found to support Berkowitz's claims, he was basically right about the description of the Sisman's apartment, and the killings are still today unsolved. The Pasadena gang shootings. Now, on Halloween night in 1993, a group of 5 Pasadena Blood gang members opened fire on trick-or-treating teenagers returning from a party. Killing 3 and wounding 3 others, the gang members were soon arrested, and police determined that they had fired at the wrong people, randomly shooting at a group of kids rather than their intended targets. 3 Bloods were found guilty of these shootings. The murder of Martha Moxley. Now, the night before Halloween in the year of '75, Connecticut teenager Martha left her house to attend a neighborhood party. Her body was found the next morning beneath a tree in her backyard, brutally beaten with a golf club. 25 years went by until Michael Shacknell, who was also 15 at the time, was arrested, charged, and convicted of her murder. The case drew worldwide attention since Stackle was the nephew of Robert F. Kennedy's widow. Because of his family's wealth, he had lived life in and out of rehab for alcohol and trying out for the Winter Olympics, and had been flunking out of multiple schools. Now, Skakel's alibi seemed bizarre, that he had been masturbating under that tree earlier the same night, according for the DNA that was found on the body, but that he had no connection to the crime. He had a letter written on his behalf by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and after numerous appeals was given a new trial in 2012 due to the prosecutor misconduct and a poor defense. He is currently out on bail, waiting to start a new trial. Our next case is the murder of Peter Fabio. Los Angeles hairstylist Peter Fabio was shot dead on Halloween night in 1957 when he opened his door for what he thought was a trick-or-treater, but was actually a grown-up in costume. I don't see what's wrong with a grown-up dressing up in costume, but, whatever. The adult shot Fabio in the chest with a .22 in a brown paper bag, yes, very nondescript, before fleeing the scene. Several weeks later, Goldine Pizar and Joan Rabel were arrested in what turned out to be a more or less plotted crime of passion. Pizar was friends or possibly in a relationship with Rabel, and Rabel was also apparently in love with Fabio's wife Betty. The two women conspired to get Peter out of the equation, and Rabel brought a gun for Pizar to shoot Peter with. The arrest kicked off a firestorm of complete controversy, as lesbians were seen as abnormal monsters with murderous urges at the time. The two pleaded guilty to the murder and served out very long prison terms. Our next one is the Taylor Van Dyest murder. Now, on Halloween in 2011, Taylor Van Dyest was leaving a party in the small town of Armstrong, Canada, when she never came home and was found beaten to death near a set of railroad tracks. Her death traumatized this town, especially after it was revealed that she had sent a text to her boyfriend before the attack saying that she was being creeped on. Police eventually used DNA found under Taylor's fingernails to arrest one Matthew Forrester for carrying out the murder and his father, Stephen, for helping him cover it up. The murder of Marvin Brandlan. Fort Dodge, Iowa resident Marvin Brandlan and his wife were handing out candy to trick-or-treaters in the year of 1982 when a man wearing a mask came to their door. He said, "Trick or treat, give me your money or I'll shoot." The Brandlans thought it was a Halloween prank and tried to remove the man's mask. Instead, the man barged into the house and pulled out a gun, demanding that the couple give him the money they had stashed in their basement safe. Now, what is interesting is that it was later revealed that only family members knew about this basement safe, as the couple did not invite strangers or even neighbors into the basement due to the safe being there. Now, Marvin made a grab for the masked man's gun, and this resulted in the robber shooting poor Marvin in the throat. He then ran away but left the mask behind. In the years that followed, Marvin's wife died, and the mask was eventually tested for DNA. As virtually nobody knew about the safe, suspicion fell on the Brandlan family, and a family member did brag about committing the robbery. But there has never been enough evidence to charge them. The death of Chris Jenkins. Now, Chris Jenkins was a 21-year-old student at the University of Minnesota who was last seen leaving a downtown Metropolis bar on Halloween night in 2002. 4 months later, his body was discovered in the Mississippi River, still wearing his Halloween costume. Since Chris was intoxicated that night and his cause of death appeared to be drowning, authorities initially believed his death was either an accident or a suicide. However, his parents refused to believe this and pressed for a more thorough investigation. Finally, in 2006, the death was reclassified as a homicide. Police claimed that an incarcerated suspect had told them that he was present when Chris was murdered and then thrown off a bridge into the river. Now, while the story is credible, there's never been enough evidence to file charges. However, one possible theory is that Chris Jenkins could have been a victim in the mysteriously unsolved smiley face murders. These bizarre killings involved approximately 40 male college students in the United States whom all of which died of drowning. In some of these cases, unexplained smiley face graffiti was found near the body of water where the victims turned up. While no smiley face graffiti was ever found in connection to Chris's case, the scenario does have a number of similarities to these killings, and to this day remains unsolved. Our final grisly murder of this Halloween evening is the disappearance of Cindy Song. Penn State graduate student Cindy Song disappeared after leaving a party on Halloween night in 2001. She'd been dropping off at her apartment and had got inside, but no one had seen her after that, and no trace of her has ever been found. The case has taken a number of bizarre twists and turns, and for a while the investigation focused on a man named Hugo Marcus Zelsinski. Now, Hugo had been arrested after 5 corpses were found in his backyard. A police informant actually linked the man and another man to Cindy, claiming that the duo had kidnapped, raped, and murdered her. To make things even weirder, the other man named in the kidnapping was found dead in this man's backyard. More bodies have been found there, but none have been proven to be Cindy, and the case remains open. And that is all the time I have for you for this video, my most beloved and murderous horde. I all hope you have an astounding Halloween, and that you all stay safe. Keep your eyes on that poison of yours. And, of course, a very happy tomorrow. And remember, my lovelies, haunting dreams and blessed be.